Gross. Call the cops. Bestie, run away. Ew. So I read a Colleen Hoover book for the first time, and I picked It Ends With Us. And Colleen Hoover is one of the authors of all time from what I read in this book. And we're just going to get into it. So the main character, her name is Lily Blossom Bloom. Hell of a name, but okay. The story opens on her after her father's funeral. It's in Boston. She decides to go to a random rooftop that she found on Google Maps to like deal with her emotions after her father's funeral. So she's sitting on this roof and she's straddling the ledge of the roof and she's just sitting there thinking to herself, whatever. The door to the roof bursts open and this random dude walks out and he just starts beating the ever loving hell out of one of the patio chairs that's up there. And then he lights a joint and he doesn't see her because it's nighttime and it's dark. She's like staring at him. And then he finally notices her and he's like, "Hey, can you get off the ledge, please? You're making me really nervous." And she says no. And then he demands that she gets down. Who the fuck are you? So she gets off the ledge. She's like, "Fine, whatever." And then they sit on the roof together and they decide to play naked truths, which they just take turns telling each other things that they normally wouldn't tell other people. You just met this man on a roof in the dark. You already witnessed him having a random like outburst of rage and now you're on a roof alone with him. And then she tells him her full name and where she lives, like points to the apartment building that she lives in. You're a lot braver than me. So Lily finds out that this guy's name is Ryle. Also hell of a name. And she starts telling Ryle that her father abused her mother and at his funeral she like bombed his eulogy on purpose. Like she walked up, she goes, "5 great things about my father," and then just doesn't say anything because there's no great things about him because he abused her mom. And he's like, "Damn, that's crazy." And then in response to finding out that her father abused her mother, he responds by saying, "There's no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things." There's no such thing as bad people. She just told you that her dad abused her mom, and you're going to say, "Oh, well, but I'm sure he wasn't a bad guy." Hello? It's his turn for a naked truth, and he tells her that he's a neurosurgeon and a child at work today died because his brother accidentally shot him and they're like two young kids. And so he's talking about how all of his coworkers were like, "Oh, I feel so bad for the parents." And then he's like, "I want the parents to suffer." Odd take, but okay. And then so they're going back and forth, taking turns saying naked truths. Ryle just says, "I want to fuck you," out of nowhere, for no reason, to this random girl he just met. Which, whatever. And Lily's like, "Sorry, I don't do one night stands." So they move on. She tells him that the first person that she ever slept with was homeless and that when her dad found out, he like beat the shit out of him. Ryle says that he never plans to get married or have children because he's too selfish and he doesn't want to have to put anyone over his career, which I would respect if he wasn't super obviously going to be the love interest in this book. He tries to coerce her into having sex with him again after she said no and like drags her chair closer to him and then puts his hand up her shirt. And at this point she consents, but I don't know if I'd call it that because, coercion. But thankfully he ends up getting a call from the hospital and has to leave, so nothing really happens. And instead of asking for her number like a normal person would when you want to keep in contact with someone, he just like takes a picture of her and then he leaves. So Lily goes home and she decides that she wants to read her old diaries. And her old diaries she refers to as her Ellen diaries. Now, what is an Ellen diary? You might be asking. Oh boy, am I excited to tell you what an Ellen diary is. When Lily was a child, she started writing a diary, but she felt awkward just writing to no one and not having like an audience to be writing to. She wrote each entry as if it was a letter to Ellen DeGeneres. I'm not going to spend too much time going over the letters because I hate when authors use letters as a way to give exposition. It's just boring and it's lazy and it's like you can skim them and get the point. So they were boring. Basically, the letter that she's reading is detailing the story of how she met the homeless high school senior that she ended up losing her virginity to. His name is Atlas, and he was staying in an abandoned house behind her house when she was 15 years old. Like, brought him food and blankets and made sure that he was good. He, like, used her shower when her parents weren't home. It's also super important for the plot that Lily and Atlas watched the Ellen DeGeneres show together. They also watch Nemo together, and Ellen DeGeneres voices Dory in Nemo and says the line just keeps swimming, and that's like the thing that they tell each other. It's like their thing. At this point, I fully realize that I do not like the way that Colleen Hoover writes her books. If you do, that's cool. I don't want to like yuck your yum. That's just me. I don't like the way she writes. Um, but the channel is called Horrible Book Club, so here we go. Randomly 6 months later, the timeline of this book fucking sucks, by the way. From here on out, I will be calling them Colleen time skips, and that's just for you to know that suddenly in the book, time has passed. It can vary from like 3 days to like 11 months, and she doesn't always say how long has passed, and the entire book just skips everywhere. So 6 months later, Lily has bought a storefront that's like super rundown and needs a lot of work, but she's going to turn it into a flower shop. Lily Blossom Bloom is going to turn it into a flower shop, and the flower shop is going to be called Lily Blossoms.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So she's standing in this rundown store, and she's like imagining what she's going to do with it, and a random girl named Alyssa walks in. And Alyssa's like, I want to work here. And Lily says she's not hiring because the store's not fucking open yet, so of course she's not hiring. But Alyssa's like, my husband's rich, I don't need money, I just want to get out of the house and I want something to do. So Lily is like, I'm not going to pay you nothing. They decide on $10 an hour. I don't feel like going into labor laws right now, but yikes, that's illegal. So they start brainstorming ideas for what they want to do with the store, and they decide that they want to make the flower shop like super edgy, like not like other flower shops. And they say there are floral shops on every corner for people who love flowers, but what about floral shops for people who hate flowers? What? Okay, so they start moving stuff, and Lily falls and she hurts her ankle. And Alyssa calls her husband and her brother to come help them because her brother's a doctor. And so her husband and her brother, they show up wearing onesies because I guess there's a bar in Boston in this story that gives you free beer if you're a grown adult wearing a onesie. Her husband and her doctor brother show up. I wonder who that could possibly. Obviously, it's fucking Ryle. We know it's Ryle. So her husband, Marshall, and Ryle show up, and Lily doesn't like look at them when they walk in the door or recognize his voice, and she's kind of just worried about her ankle. And then he like reaches down to start touching her ankle, and she's like, I recognize those arms. You recognize his arms? You had one conversation on a dark rooftop. What do you mean you recognize his arms? So he starts tending to her ankle, and Alyssa and her husband, Marshall, go to the store and they like get some ice so she can ice it. And then he's like, do you want a naked truth? And she's like, yeah, sure. And he goes, I still very much want to fuck you. Okay. And then Alyssa and Marshall are in the doorway and they're like, what the fuck? Because they are under the assumption that these two people just met. And Alyssa's like, sorry, my brother's just a fucking weirdo. Lily and Ryle vow to never talk to each other again because he does not want a relationship and she does not want a one night stand. But they're both very attracted to each other. So they decide it's just best if they don't interact with each other anymore. That would be fine. That would be dandy. If anyone in this book was written like an actual human adult person, but unfortunately, here we are. Lily goes home and reads more Ellen letters that night. And the letters is about how Atlas gave her some old gardening tools or something from the abandoned house he was staying at, and about how they watched the Ellen show together. And then she goes through a bunch of different Ellen letters, like detailing her history with Atlas and her dad abusing her mom. Colleen time skip. It's a couple days later, I think, and Ryle shows up at her apartment, even though literally 2 pages ago they said that they were going to be staying away from each other. And she opens the door and she's like, what are you doing here? And he says, I've knocked on 29 doors. So he went through her entire apartment trying to find which one was hers. Bestie, run away. Ryle tells her that he cannot stop thinking about her and wanting to have sex with her. And he has some super important neurosurgeon test coming up. And so he begs her to make it stop. by having sex with him just one time. And then she says no. And then he pins her to a fucking wall and's like, pretty please call the cops. If you have to beg for sex, that's coercion. So she says, fine, we can have sex just this once. We can have sex one time. But just so you know, I'm super addictive and you won't be able to stop once you've fucked me just once. Like she's a fucking Pringle or something. And so she goes to shower and freshen up and shave and all the things. And she comes back out into her room and he's just fucking asleep in her bed, like snoring. And then she just goes to sleep next to him like that's normal. I could never, but you do you. When she wakes up, he's like caressing her in her sleep like a weirdo. Then he's like, I'm late. I gotta go. You'll never see me again. Don't worry. Like we're supposed to believe that at this point. Colleen time skip 2-ish months later, I think. The store that Lily bought is finished, and her and Alyssa have become like BFFs at this point. And they're about to like soft open for the first time. Like they haven't advertised it at all. They're just gonna open the store, see what happens. Guess who the first customer is? Of course, it's fucking Ryle. Mr. You'll Never See Me Again. And he ends up buying an entire vase of lilies. And then Alyssa, who's his sister, is like, who are those for? You never have girlfriends. And he doesn't answer and he like fills out the card and then he leaves. They read the card and it just says, make it stop. Gross. They see that he addressed the delivery to the flower shop and Alyssa's just like, oh my God, what an idiot. I'll go tell him that he fucked up. Like, come on, piece it together. He bought a vase of lilies in Lily's flower shop and then addressed it to the flower shop and was like making awkward eye contact with her the whole time. Piece it together. Colleen time skip. I don't know how long it's been. Lily brings her gay friend Devin to Alyssa's birthday party. And Ryle is absolutely fucking pissed that she brought a date to this birthday party. And he smashes a wine glass in the garbage can. Super stable man. He walks away, and Lily sees that everyone in the living room at this party is standing around this big picture in the living room. So she looks at it and she realizes that this is the picture that he took of her on the rooftop at the beginning of this story. But it's like blown up and distorted and blurry. So like you can't really tell, but her and Ryle can tell. That's weird as fuck. Please get a restraining order. So she goes out to the balcony and she's like, what the fuck do you want from me, dude? Like, what do you want? You don't want a relationship, but you keep pursuing me. What do you want from me? And he doesn't answer. So she goes to leave and she's about to walk out of the door and Ryle like yells her name and starts running towards her and like picks her up and carries her to his bedroom. And he starts kissing her and she's like, stop, put me down. And then he keeps doing it. So basically we're witnessing assault at this point, but it's written like it's supposed to be sexy. And then she yells at him to put her down and he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for assaulting you. I just wanted to. And that makes it okay. Lily is like, okay, whatever. And then he's like, I think that we could be more than a one night stand. For the first time in my life, I want to be something more than a one night stand with you. What can I do to make you believe that I'm trustworthy and I deserve this? And Lily says, don't have sex with me. And that's how you can prove that you want more than sex. And he's like, okay. And then they go to sleep together. And Ryan and Alyssa live in the same apartment. So when Lily wakes up, she goes out into the kitchen and is drinking coffee with Alyssa. And Alyssa starts warning her against dating her own brother, which if I was about to be in a relationship with someone and their own family was like, hey, don't date them, I would probably take that advice and run. But you do you. Ryle interrupts them, so Alyssa can't tell her why she doesn't want her to date him. Colleen time skip. We are back at Lily's apartment reading more Ellen letters. And she's reading about when she was showing Atlas how to garden. And it says that he wiped manure like down both of her arms. And then Lily says, when he was wiping that cow shit on me, it was quite possibly the most turned on I have ever been. What? Ew. And then it's never mentioned again in the entire book. Like, she doesn't have a shit fetish. And it's never brought up ever again. Colleen, why did you write this into this book? Anyway, so she finishes reading the Ellen letters, and Ryle comes over. And do you remember like 2 seconds ago when she was like, don't have sex with me? And he was like, of course, bestie, anything for you. Well, Ryle comes over and then they have sex. They go to dinner with Lily's mom. And guess who their fucking waiter is? It's Atlas, the homeless boy that Lily had sex with. Lily and Atlas go catch up outside. And it's just like friendly catching up. They're just like, oh, how have you been? Da da da, whatever. And then Lily goes home and reads more Ellen letters, and she's like all in her feels. Colleen time skip. So we're at the actual grand opening of the flower shop, like after advertisement. It's advertised as the grand opening, and it's like super busy. You want to be in a video? Yes, we hate Ryle, don't we? Yes, we do. We hate Ryle. This is the Ryle Hater Club. So they're at this grand opening for the flower shop, and afterwards, Ryle, Lily, Alyssa, and Marshall go out to get drinks. They go to the bar that like you get free beer if you're wearing a onesie, so they're all wearing onesies. Alyssa announces that she won't be drinking any alcohol tonight because she is pregnant. I don't think I've mentioned at this point that there was a vague scene before where Alyssa's talking about how she's struggling with fertility and she's struggling with getting pregnant. And I don't know why it was written into the story because it's never brought up again. It's never like a plot point. It's never something that we actually see her struggle with at all. And then she gets pregnant immediately. So I don't know why it was in this book, but go off. After they finish at the bar, Ryle and Lily go back to Lily's apartment and he makes a comment about her being hot in a onesie, and then they have sex. Colleen time skip. Ryle comes to the flower shop after Lily closes, and then they have sex in her office. They just have sex all the time, and it's really boring. They have sex in her office, and the entire time that they are having sex in the scene, he is pressing his stethoscope to her chest and telling her her heart rate while they are having sex. And that's the end of the scene. Colleen time skip. I just want to put it out there. This is where the story starts to get fucked up. Very heavily on topics of domestic violence and abuse throughout the rest of the story. There's no warning for this in the book, but I just want to put it out there in case anyone doesn't want to hear about it. You can go watch something else, go outside, read a different book, not this one. Please, please, God, don't read this book. Also, the fact that this is like promoted as a romance book is still super fucking weird to me. It's literally about domestic violence, which is fine. It's fine to write books about that. But from what I've seen, it's mainly promoted as romance. Anyway, Ryle comes over to Lily's apartment. He has the weekend off and he brought wine. And when he gets there, Lily is baking a casserole and only an apron. So obviously they start having sex and doing sexy things. And Colleen writes, and then, just like a magician, his hand disappears. The whole hand? Stop. So they're doing sexy things. They're both drunk. They end up forgetting about the casserole, and then they panic because it starts to burn in the oven. And in his panic, Ryle grabs it out of the oven without putting an oven mitt on, and he like burns his hand and drops it on the ground and it shatters. And Lily, being very intoxicated at this point and not realizing that he hurt his super important neurosurgeon hand, like kind of laughs a little bit because it's a funny situation, you know? Ryle yells at her and then pushes her so hard she falls into the cabinets behind her and slams her face into them. And like one of the cabinet knobs like bruises her eye. And immediately he's like, I'm so sorry. And he's begging her not to hate him. And so they have sex about it. Colleen writes about his apologetic thrusts or whatever, and then they say they love each other. I'm so tired. Colleen time skip. A few days later, they go back to the restaurant that Atlas works at with Alyssa. And I do want to mention that Lily did ask to go to a different restaurant, that she did not want to go to this restaurant. But Ryle's like, no, we're going to go to this one. So they end up going, and Ryle just straight up lies about what happened. And he tells Alyssa that Lily like slipped on olive oil and then fell and hurt her face, you know, like an abusive liar. They order, they eat, whatever. And then the waiter, who's not Atlas, is like, the chef gives free dessert to any expecting mothers. So they get free dessert. And the chef comes out, and the chef is Atlas. He's a waiter, a chef, a dishwasher, and everything because he owns the fucking restaurant. So Atlas comes out to like congratulate Alyssa on being pregnant, and he sees Ryle's hand in Lily's eye, and obviously he thinks that Ryle punched her in the face, which to be fair is not too far off from what happened. But he doesn't say anything, and he just like goes back into the kitchen. And Lily goes to the bathroom to like collect herself, collect her feelings, do what she needs to do. And Atlas meets her in there, and he's immediately just like, fucking leave him. That's what I'm saying. Lily's like, no, I'm safe with him. No, you're not. And they walk out of the bathroom, and Ryle sees them, and he immediately thinks that Lily is cheating on him with the chef of the restaurant, I guess. And so Atlas and Ryle start fighting, and Lily ends up yelling Atlas's name while they're fighting, and Ryle remembers it from their conversation on the rooftop like 10 months ago or something at this point. And so he's like, Atlas, the homeless boy you pity fucked. And then they fight more, and Atlas is like, get the fuck out of my restaurant. And then they leave, and Ryle's pissed and like won't talk to her. And then in the car, Lily tells him what actually happened, and then they have sex. And I'm so goddamn bored of this book. Their relationship is nothing except for them having sex. Colleen time skip. Atlas shows up to the flower shop. I think it's like a few days after the restaurant scene, and he gives Lily a gift that he got her 3 years ago in case they ever ran into each other. I don't think I've mentioned it at this point. When they were teenagers, Atlas said he was going to be moving to Boston, like everything's better in Boston. And Lily was like, when I grow up, I'm going to move there. And so she did. So they're both in Boston, and they're just now meeting for the first time because they've just never met at this point. So he gives her this gift, and then he writes his phone number on a sticky note and puts it in her phone case in case she ever needs to call him for an emergency, aka Ryle beating the shit out of her. And then Atlas leaves, and she opens the gift that he brought her, and it's an autographed Ellen DeGeneres book that says just keep swimming or something. And then she goes home and reads more Ellen notes that we already know about. And then now we're in part 2 of the book, Colleen time skip. They go to meet Ryle and Alyssa's parents. Literally nothing interesting happens. Their parents go to bed like immediately. And then Ryle and Lily decide that they're going to go to Vegas and get married. Colleen time skip. 6 weeks later, Lily is taking a shower and she hears a crashing noise from the bedroom. And when she gets out there, the bedroom is trashed, like nightstand knocked over, everything on the ground. She's like, what is happening? And Ryle tells her that he accidentally dropped her phone. Why did you have her phone in the first place? And when he dropped her phone, the case popped off and the sticky note with Atlas's phone number came out. And Lily says the only 2 outcomes she can think of are him leaving her or him hurting her. Bessie, that's not a good sign. And he gets mad and he goes to leave. And Lily tries to follow him to explain, like, he put it there weeks ago. She hasn't talked to him since then, but he pushes her down the stairs of the apartment, and then she passes out. And it cuts to Lily waking up after passing out, and Ryle is telling her to like be still and let him finish fixing her up or whatever. And then he tells her that she fell down the stairs, that he didn't push her, she fell down the stairs. And she's like, no, you pushed me. And then he keeps gaslighting her and telling her that she fell. And then he's like, you fell down the stairs right after I found out what a liar I married. And then he just leaves her there. And then he comes back like 10 minutes later, and he's all sad, and he begs her to tell him that she isn't cheating on him. And she's like, Atlas put it there weeks ago and I forgot about it. We haven't talked since then. And then he's relieved, but he still tries to tell her that she fell down the stairs. And so she's like, get the fuck out of my apartment. So Lily goes to leave the next morning, and she finds out that Ryle slept on the floor outside of her door. And he gets up when she comes out and he says sorry over and over again, all the way down to her car. And then she just leaves him there. And she has to go buy a new phone because Ryle smashed hers. And she gets to the flower shop, and Alyssa is there with Ryle. And Alyssa's like, please just hear him out. And Ryle tells her that him and Alyssa used to have an older brother named Emerson. And when Ryle was 5, Ryle was playing with what he thought was a toy gun, and he shot Emerson in the head because it was a real gun. And he's been in therapy ever since. It's not mentioned at all in this book except for this one sentence that Ryle's in therapy. We never see him going to therapy, talking about having a therapy appointment. Like, he's always either at work having sex with Lily or abusing Lily. He's never actually in therapy, but whatever. And when he gets mad, ever since this happened, or he feels too many emotions, he just like blacks out. And like, yes, that is horrible and that is traumatizing, but your trauma is not an excuse to abuse another person. And this is written like we're supposed to forgive him for this, and Lily does. And then Lily ends up comforting him after he pushed her down the fucking stairs. Colleen time skip. Alyssa's on maternity leave, and Lily has 2 different full-time employees that don't matter. Honestly, at this point in the book, the entire flower shop stops being important to the plot. And Lily goes over to Alyssa's apartment and finds out that Ryle has bought them an apartment in the same building as Alyssa's. And me personally, if you're my husband or we're together and you buy an apartment for us without consulting me, I'm gonna be fucking pissed. But Lily's like, oh my god, it's perfect. I love it. So you do you, queen. Colleen time skip. Alyssa has her baby, and she names her baby Riley after Ryle. And they're in the hospital visiting. And Ryle decides, you know what? I do want kids because holding this infant for 5 minutes has made me rethink my entire life and I want kids now. And so he goes home. Lily stays longer than Ryle did. And he tells Lily that when she gets home, they can start trying to make baby. When Lily does get home, he is standing in the kitchen drinking scotch and they start doing sexy things. And while doing the sexy things, Ryle starts asking her questions about Atlas and making her answer while he's still doing the things. And then Lily notices that the box with all of her Ellen diaries is open on the floor and that Ryle had read them. And she asks him to leave and to please not hurt her, but he keeps doing the things that he's doing, even though she is trying to tell him to stop and fight back, and this is sexual assault. He headbutts her so hard that she passes out. When she wakes up, he is still on top of her, but he is saying sorry over and over again, and then she passes out again. When she wakes up a second time, he is sleeping on top of her, so she sneaks out from under him and tries to leave, but he hid her keys. So she calls Atlas. Atlas comes to get her and is obviously super fucking pissed at Ryle, but he listens to Lily and just takes her to the hospital instead of trying to go into the apartment to fight with Ryle. Lily needs stitches in her head and has a concussion. Her neurosurgeon husband fell asleep while she sat there needing stitches and having a concussion. What? The doctor at the hospital tells her that they don't want to order a head CT for her because she is pregnant. She declines to stay for observation, and Atlas takes her to his house and she showers and go to bed. This whole scene is fucking like this whole part is so rough to read. This is not a romance book. Oh my god. Books about darker things are fine and valid, but they should be promoted as books about those things. And it should be known before you start reading that book that that book is about those dark things. It shouldn't be a surprise halfway through the book. And I understand that Colleen wanted it to be like the genuine experience of having a relationship and all of a sudden it goes bad. I understand that, but Jesus Christ, dude. So the next day passes, and Atlas is taking care of her and tells her to stay as long as she wants. And Lily is trying her best to cope with the unthinkable shit that she has been through and learned in the last 24 hours. I do also want to point out that none of this is Lily's fault. Were there a lot of red flags in the beginning? Yes. Should she have left before this? Absolutely. But under no circumstances should Ryle have put his hands on her, gaslit her, and done any of the things that he has done. All of the blame is 100% on him. So the next day, Lily goes to the flower shop to take care of some things, and Ryle shows up. And he just tells her that he's leaving for 3 months that night for some residency thing at a hospital in another country, and that he knows that she needs time and he paid all of the bills in advance. And he doesn't say sorry. So he leaves, and Lily goes back to Atlas's house, and Atlas tells her that if by some miracle she ever finds herself in a position to fall in love again, to do it with him. Bestie, now is not the time. What are you doing? Colleen time skip. Lily is now 18 weeks pregnant and has not told anyone aside from Atlas that she's pregnant. She has been spending most of her time at Alyssa's apartment wearing baggy clothes so no one can see her stomach. Eventually, Alyssa realizes that Ryle and Lily have obviously not been talking to each other. And so Alyssa's like, can you just tell me what happened, please? And so Lily tells her everything, all of what Ryle has done to her, and that she is pregnant with his child. And Alyssa tells her that as Ryle's sister, she wants him to be able to forgive him, but as Lily's best friend, if she ever takes him back, Alyssa will never talk to her again. Colleen time skip. About 2 weeks later, Lily is going from Alyssa's apartment back to her own apartment, and Ryle is there, and he sees the baby bump, and he starts apologizing and kissing her stomach. He says that Lily has no idea what he's been through these last 2 months. You what? And Lily goes off on his fucking ass, as she should. And he tells her that he was coming to say goodbye and that he had taken a job in Minnesota, but now obviously he cannot leave because she is pregnant with his baby. And Lily tells him that she wishes the baby wasn't his. And then he leaves, obviously very hurt by this, and Lily feels bad. But honestly, I have 0% empathy for Ryle. Fuck him. I wish Lily would have said worse things. Colleen time skip. Lily tells her mom everything. She's super fucking pregnant at this point and has been avoiding her mom, but she goes and she tells her mom everything, that Ryle had been abusing her and that she's pregnant. And her mom is like, I'm so proud of you. Please don't be like me. Find the strength to leave Ryle. Be brave. Another Colleen time skip. Lily is having her baby shower at Alyssa's apartment, and Ryle shows up at the end, and he helps bring all of the gifts down to Lily's apartment. He's like, do you need help putting the crib together? And she's like, yeah, I guess. And it's super awkward. But Lily is super strong and keeps her guard up, and then he leaves without incident. Super proud of her. Another Colleen time skip. The entire pregnancy, like the entire rest of this book, really is just time skips, and it's so fucking boring. So another Colleen time skip a few weeks later, Lily has finished painting a mural in the nursery that she's been making, and her mom and Alyssa are both busy and can't come look at it until the next day. But she is like feeling emotions and wants to show it to someone, so she texts Ryle and she asks if he wants to come see the nursery that's finished, since it's going to be his kid that's sleeping there. And he says yes. And so he comes over and they talk, and he says the mural's amazing, and they talk about more things. And Lily tells him that he will need to be very patient and understanding with her. Like, she doesn't want to keep the baby away from him, but she is very hesitant to leave the baby alone with him once it's born, considering he loses control when he gets mad or frustrated. You cannot do that with a baby. Babies will get on your last fucking nerve, and you can't just lose control and be like, tee sorry, I'm traumatized. That's not how that works. He is kind of decent about it for once, and he's like, I would never do that, but I understand. I'm willing to do whatever you want to do. Everything's on your terms. But he has never once stuck to his word. So, Colleen time skip. Lily is now 2 days away from her due date. Ryle has been sleeping on her couch for like the last week in case she goes into labor or needs anything, and it's going fine, I guess. He doesn't really talk to her. They don't really talk to each other. They're just coexisting in the same apartment. And the only real like interaction they have is him asking if she needs anything, or him like talking to her stomach. He leaves for work, and then like 2 minutes later, Lily's water breaks. And I need you to understand how fast this happens. So her water breaks. Ryle immediately comes back, or she takes a shower, I guess, because she feels gross, but she takes a super quick shower. Ryle comes back and they immediately go to the hospital. When they get there, Lily is 9 centimeters dilated already. Like, I know sometimes they just kind of like shoot out of there, but Jesus Christ, calm down. So she has the baby without any complications. Ryle cuts the cord. They name the baby after Ryle's and Alyssa's dead brother Emerson, and then they call her Emmy for short. So they're sitting there holding their baby, and Lily tells Ryle that she wants a divorce. He starts begging as per usual, and so Lily is like, listen, what would you do if this beautiful daughter that I have just birthed came up to you one day and said, my husband or my boyfriend hit me or pushed me down the stairs or sexually assaulted me? And Ryle's like, fuck, you're right. I guess I'm a horrible person, because apparently that's what it takes for him to realize that he's a horrible person. And so he agrees, and he leaves to go collect himself. And Lily is talking to Emmy, and she says, it stops here with me, with you. It ends with us. She said the thing. That's the title of the book. Surely I can stop reading this train wreck now, right? No, there's an epilogue. The last Colleen time skip of this video, 11 months later. Lily is dropping Emmy off with Ryle for his day with her. I'm still super not okay with him being left alone with a baby, but alas, it is not my child. She ends up running into Atlas after dropping Emmy off and tells him that Emmy's middle name is Dory from Nemo, voiced by Ellen DeGeneres. Just keep swimming. So her child's name is Emerson Dory Bloom. And then they both decide that they are ready to start dating, and that is the end of the book. The only place in this entire book that would lead you to believe that it is about domestic violence or abuse is in the author's note at the end of the book. And Colleen says that that is to prevent spoilers. Colleen, overall, it's definitely not the worst book I've ever read. Like, it's not unreadable. I finished the book. I was even very invested at some points during the book. It's not a bad story, but the way Colleen writes is just so horrible. The book is an amazing concept. It's just written so bad. The characters are not believable at all. They're all early to mid 20s and like rich and super successful and know exactly where they're going with their lives. It's said many times in the book that Lily has a hard time accepting what Ryle was doing as abuse and leaving him, which is very true in most cases of domestic violence, and that's fine. That happens. That's just realistic. but it's never written into the story how they fall in love. They barely bond. She writes it in that they barely see each other because they both work all the time, and all they do to like bond is have sex. Like the only things in the book are them having sex or him abusing her. So it's not, write it better. Give her more reason to not want to leave him. There has to be something good to make her be able to look past the bad shit to make the story believable. It's just very shallow the way that she writes it. Like she has the right concept, but she does not execute it well at all. And the whole thing overall seems super shallow. The characters are shallow, the plot is shallow, the author seems shallow. You write a book about a girl struggling with domestic violence, but you don't write about the rest of the relationship, which is a lot of the time what makes it so hard to leave. And you have all these characters that have no personality beyond the role that they are written for. Alyssa is boring. She's just Lily's friend and Ryle's sister. She has no depth at all, just like the rest of all the characters in this book. The pacing of the book is horrible. The entire thing is time skips and it's lazy. And I can understand you not wanting to write out every single second of someone's 9-month pregnancy, but the entire thing is time skips. And it's just all of a sudden time has passed. What happened in between? We don't know. And the ending, the ending is awful. She's just somehow magically over the trauma of being in an abusive relationship, which would be great if we got to see it. If you're going to write a book about domestic violence, we don't just want to see the domestic violence. We want to be able to see the person recover and overcome all of the struggles that they've gone through and triumph. And so we can celebrate with them getting over their trauma. But no, it just gets skipped over. It's 11 months later and she's magically cured and ready to be in another relationship. When she does get together with Atlas, we read all of these fucking Ellen DeGeneres letters detailing their entire history, what makes them so special to each other. And then the end of the book, it's just, yeah, we're going to start dating now. Like there's no angst, there's no depth, there's no conversation. It's just we're gonna start dating now. Again, the plot of the book had a lot of potential to be amazing. It just wasn't. The entire book is full of plot holes. It's thrown together super sloppily and skipped all over the place all the time. And I am in no way, shape, or form saying that Lily not leaving is what makes it bad because it's not. That's just realistic for many domestic violence relationships. But the fact that we're missing so much of the story makes it seem super shallow. And it seems like it was written in a hurry. And I wish we had more about Lily and Ryle bonding beyond just having sex so we could empathize with Lily more and her struggling to leave the relationship. I wish someone else had written this book. This book would be good if it was written by someone who knew how to write this kind of book. How do I end this? So true.